Good evening, South Windsor, and welcome to the Town Council regular meeting of Tuesday, January 17th at 7 p.m. Could we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening. My mayor's remarks this evening are going to be on Martin Luther King Day yesterday, and in celebration of that, South Windsor's Mayor's Day of Service, we went into Hartford with Officer Jimmy Barrett, who was originally from South Windsor, who works with the homeless in Hartford, and many restaurants donated wonderful food for us to take into Hartford and feed the homeless. I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor King for being there. I'd like to thank Councilor Paterna, Councilor Kozakowski, and his wife and children for being there. And I would like to thank the Hartford Bags of Love for organizing this for us. It was a wonderful day. It was very successful. We fed many people at a bus stop that would get off the bus and get some food and get back on the bus. And they would ride on the bus for free throughout the day to stay warm. And Officer Barrett works very closely with the homeless in Hartford. So we had a very successful day that you can see pictures and video on my mayor's page on Facebook, Mayor Liz Pendleton. So that's what I'd like to report on that. So thank you again to all the wonderful restaurants that donated. I can't even think of all of them off the top of my head. But many local restaurants. We had Councilor Paterno's little electric car full to the rim, and I was riding on the dashboard. So it was packed full of food. It was a little garlic truck rolling down the road. It was great. So I don't think his car will ever smell the same again. It was awesome. So we'll move on now to item number 6. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. I skipped that. I always do that. I apologize. Roll call, please.
Councilor Evans?
Here.
Councilor Kabowski? Councilor Lopez?
Here.
Councilor Paterna?
Here.
Mayor Pendleton?
Present.
Deputy Mayor King?
Here.
Councilor Kozakowski?
Here.
Councilor Leidecker? Here. Councilor Gamble?
The only other mayor's comments that I'd like to say is I'd like to thank the folks that recognized my birthday today for the beautiful balloon, and I have a teddy bear, and I have plants, and I have cards, and I have birthday cake for everyone to have after the meeting in the caucus room. So thank you for acknowledging that. I feel very special. Councilor Kabowski is not here, so Councilor Kozakowski, please adoption of agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt the agenda. Second.
Is there any deletions, corrections, changes, additions, anything to the agenda that we'd like to address? Councilor Kozakowski, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Then we have communications and reports from the town manager, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I had the opportunity to meet with the executive director from the Capital Region Council of Governments. He and I went to lunch and had a nice ride around town, got the opportunity to show him all the different parts and great things that South Windsor has to offer. Through that conversation, we had a number of discussions related to economic development projects in the community, as well as infrastructure projects and particularly funding. He is looking to possibly come to one of your upcoming council meetings to introduce himself, as well as get the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what the Capital Region Council of Governments does. I just actually got the email request today, so we're going to work on trying to find a date that works for everybody so that he could come here and do just a quick presentation at one of your upcoming council meetings. I had the opportunity in terms of tower management to meet with Marcus Communications to discuss the management of our tower at Veterans Memorial Park. We've heard from one carrier so far who's interested in renting space on that tower. As we move forward, there are a number of specific management challenges with a tower like this. For example, contractor management, equipment location, and advertisement to other potential companies. Marcus does provide 24/7 management services for some towers in the area, and as a result, we're currently reviewing what that might look like for the town and if we should enter into an agreement for them to help with the management of that location. If something of that nature ends up working out well, we would probably move on and look at other tower locations that the town actually owns And ideally, we would be looking to maximize the potential profits coming in off of those towers as the community offers space on them for other cell carriers. I also had the opportunity to meet with our state legislative delegation last week. We discussed state funding for specific projects and the idea that many of the other surrounding communities are getting special projects earmarked for funding from the state. As a result, I've had all the departments who are currently working on a wish list of projects that we'll be providing to our delegates with the hope that we can start seeing some additional funding like other communities coming into our community. I would also offer the opportunity to the council, if any of you have any special projects that you may think would benefit the town, please don't hesitate to email them forward to me so we could add them onto the list as well. Lastly, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware the engineering department will hold a public information meeting regarding the Pleasant Valley Road project on February 1st, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Notices will be mailed out next week. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Maniscalco? Councilor Evans?
Thank you. Not related to anything that you've shared so far, but we've seen a lot of information about AEDs and having access to them in multiple areas, especially when there are sporting events going on. I'm wondering if you could speak to where or how they're provided within town buildings, as well as I'm also thinking like Park and Rec and their events, how that is covered.
So my understanding is we are designated as a heart-safe community, which means we have AEDs in all of our municipal facilities. If you walk outside this room right here, outside the door in the back of the room, there is an AED located just directly to the left of the door. Those are checked pretty regularly. I've seen staff out there checking them to make sure the batteries are good in them, and they go around and check all the other ones in all the other buildings as well. So every building, every municipal building that we have should have an AED in it that is operational.
And in regards to recreation, when Park and Rec runs their events or on fields and at times like that, what access would they have?
Well, it depends on where, I guess. I would imagine our schools probably have AEDs in them as well. I just don't know where they would be housing them. In terms of Wapping, the Wapping School where Park and Rec is currently housed, there's AEDs located in that building as well. So any of those fields from there, if there's a municipal facility close by, certainly.
And I'm sure that Park and Rec probably falls a little outside like an athletic trainer or that type of area, but do we have someone capable in a medical emergency on hand in those, when those events are going on or when, a recreation sport is happening?
Well, it depends on what program is being conducted. So if it's during summer camp, for example, we have nurses on staff. If the preschool program is ongoing, we have nurses on staff that are there and capable of handling those types of incidences. If it's some other type of program, we do provide some basic first aid training to a lot of our coaches and staff, but I wouldn't say it's to the same level and degree that a nurse would have or somebody of that nature.
I think it would be kind of to the benefit of the town and our residents if maybe we looked at and just reviewed our overall plan with that, just to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and providing, that extra care and service just in case of an incident, I think would be a great thing to look at. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Maniscalco, I'm sorry. Does anyone else have any other questions? I just want to touch base on the AED. I believe it's every 2 years that training occurs.
Yeah, so we do, for the town staff,
Yeah.
for all of our town staff, we offer CPR and AED training for all the town staff. We just did it this last year, so,
Okay.
it's available for everybody, and I do know a lot of our staff do take that training, so.
Great, thank you. And any other questions? Okay. Mr. Maniscalco, who is the gentleman's name from CROG, Mr.?
Matt Hart,
Okay,
H-A-R-T.
H-A-R-T?
Yeah.
And Amanda, if you could, on the Pleasant Valley Road Public Information Meeting, could you send an email to all us council members so we can put it into our calendars if we like to attend? Thank you. Is there any other questions for Mr. Maniscalco? Councilor Paterno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councilor Evans, for bringing this up. I just question what happens when there are private organizations like the soccer club and the Little League. And we have no jurisdiction over that, but how do we know that they're prepared in case of an
Correct.
emergency like that?
So, this has been part of a conversation actually we had today. Little League, Soccer Club, those are all independent organizations, and while they rent the field space from the town, they operate under their own rules with their own leagues, and, it's really a separate and distinct organization. So we don't have a whole lot of ability to get them to do certain types of trainings. That said, from one of the conversations I actually had earlier today, our Park and Rec director is going to be reaching out to one of those organizations to see if there was any additional medical training that our Parks and Rec staff can offer to them moving forward, but it would be voluntary on their part, whether they take part in it or not.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Moving on, we have public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes when recognized by the mayor. The speaker shall approach the lectern, give their names and addresses. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speakers shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on any items on the agenda? Anyone from the public would like to speak to the council on any items on the agenda? Going a third time, anyone from the public like to speak to the council on any items on the agenda? Not seeing anyone, we'll be moving on. Item number 8, Councilor Evans, please.
Adoption of minutes of previous meetings. Approval of January 3rd, 2023, Town Council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of January 3rd, 2023.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion, additions, corrections, deletions of the minutes? No? Councilor Merrick, Councilor Merrick. Councilor Kozakowski. Okay. We all good? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9 is communications from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Is there anyone that would like to give a report on any of the meetings that they have attended? Councilor Kozakowski.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that the Planning and Zoning Commission had a meeting last Tuesday where they did a couple actions of public interest. First, they did a 8-24 review and offered a positive referral recommendation to the council for the Pleasant Valley Road Bridge and Road reconstruction, Kennedy Road reconstruction, and sidewalk reconstructions on Dart Hill Road, Ayers Road, Nevers, Foster Street, and Buckland Road. And then they also, you may remember that they currently have a zoning moratorium on multifamily residential and residential subdivisions. So during that time, they were working on zoning regulations to address issues in town. And they have released a draft, zoning regulation to address subdivisions and multifamily development, and will hold a public hearing at some point in the future. It hasn't been scheduled yet. But that language should be available by now on the website under the Planning and Zoning Commission pending applications page.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Mr. Maniscalco, do we need to have the 824 put onto the agenda for the first meeting in February? Do we need to do anything with that?
Let me do a little looking into it first, and then
All right.
we'll see where it ends up.
Thank you, and if you could just let Amanda know so
Will
we can
do.
get it on the agenda. Thank you. And Councilor Evans.
Thank you. Human Relations Commission met on January 5th, where they continue to make plans for the Mayor's Day of Service, in which they also collected backpacks, gloves, and hats. At this point, they have not yet been donated, but they will be donated this week.
Nice.
To the homeless in Hartford through the Hartford Bags of Love and Dr. Barrett's organization. The Social Justice Racial Equity Commission met on January 9th, and I want to give a lot of credit to those commissioners seated because they have really made a commitment to being present and being a part of these meetings so that they can move forward, because every person at this point has to be present for them to be able to meet. The commission was able to appoint a chair, so it is now has a chair, vice chair, and secretary. They are a fully functioning commission. And they also started to look at the duties of what they'll be working on and starting to kind of go through those and make a plan of what they're going to do going forward. So they looked at the first two, and they're going to continue to look at the additional duties going forward from there. The Park and Recreation Commission met on January 11th. They discussed the strategic planning questions that we had requested of them. They gave their, I think it was 2 or 3 questions. They wanted to have another month to really fine tune those to make sure to have that they were appropriate to get back to the strategic planning committee. There is a member of the strategic planning committee on the Park and Rec Commission, so he was able to kind of help, guide those questions, and that's why they want to take a little more time and look at them and narrow them in. They also met as a subcommittee to start working on their citizen survey. So 3 members of the commission are participating in a subcommittee, and they're working with Molly from Parks and Rec, as well as other individuals from the department, to create a survey that will go out to the community, and they're starting to move forward with working on that. So that is continuing to progress and move forward.
Thank you. Just a minute. I'm a little confused, Mr. Maniscalco. Maybe you can clarify with what Councilor Evans just had mentioned. And you can jump into Councilor Evans. The strategic planning, I do believe, is separate from Park and Rec, but she had just mentioned strategic planning questions going on to the Park and Rec, but then she mentions the citizen survey, so I'm a little confused because I thought they were 2 separate.
So we're using a listserv from the Parks and Rec Department, which is a list of emails of people who have signed up for Parks and Rec programs. So the Strategic Planning Committee is using that list of emails to send out their survey, as well as they're using a list of emails from the Board of Ed, a list of emails from the Senior Center, a list of emails from all these different places. So I believe that's what she was referring to.
But as far as the questions,
It's the Strategic Planning Survey for the questions that are going out for their survey. The Park and Rec survey is the questions going out for their.
right, okay, the citizen survey.
Yeah.
Councilor Evans, clear me up here.
So if I can clear that up, so the strategic planning committee is all departments, all areas. So they felt that it was important to have the Park and Rec provide some questions that they could include, knowing the Park and Rec best.
Gotcha.
So it is just a few questions of the many that will go to the strategic planning survey. In addition, they are also working on their own survey because they have to do a master plan, which I don't have it in front of me, but it hasn't been done in
Years.
many years, 12 years.
Yeah,
It's maybe the early 2000s it was done. So they are working on creating a survey so that they can rebuild and work on a new master plan for Park and Rec.
I'm sorry, I had it in reverse. I thought it in reverse. I apologize. I was confused. Thank you for that clarification. And Councilor Paterno, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question related to planning and zoning, so perhaps Councilor Kozakowski could help. I don't know about the rest of you, but the number 1 question that I am asked by people in town is, what's happening with the Geisler's Plaza? Number 1 question. So I'm wondering has there been any update at P&Z, any of the meetings about what the progress is and how close they are? I know they were in mediation at one point. Thank you.
Yeah, as I understand it, there's still pending litigation, so I would like to defer to the town manager for any comments.
Look at that smile.
Nice move, Councilor Kozakowski.
That was a hot potato. No, I think unfortunately, due to the fact that it is in court, we really can't say much about it. I know there's not a whole lot of information coming out as a result of it, but I think we're all hopeful something can move forward because it's been going on for quite a while.
Yes. Thank you. Is there any other boards or commission reports? Not seeing any, we'll move on to item 10, report from any committees. Councilor Evans?
Thank you. So the Open Government Initiative, we weren't a committee, but the three people designated with the role of continuing to move that forward met to discuss how that might look with the new Video Go mobile option. We felt that it would be important to go out to the commissions and see who might be willing to step up and be the first ones. So it was myself, Councilor Lopez, and Councilor Gamble who met, and we went through and found the commissions that we would approach, which is the Planning and Building Commission, Social Justice Racial Equity Commission, Economic Development Commission, Patriotic Commission, Historic District Commission, Human Relations Commission, and Agricultural Commission. So there are 8 in total. In looking at the previous resolution, which I gave to each of you at the beginning of the meeting, or before the meeting started, it does say in the resolution, commissions. So this resolution does focus only on commissions. So when we started talking about it, we were looking at boards, we were looking at committees, but based on the resolution that we previously passed in December 16, 2019, this focuses on commissions, and that's why we pulled those 8 listed commissions to approach and ask. The other thing that we noticed in this resolution, which we'll have to look at as a council and decide if we want to change going forward, if you look on the bottom of page 32, in the last paragraph, it says that it directs the town manager to make available the video cameras and facility necessary to live stream. So the word live, the 2 words live stream in there is what we might have to make a change to, only because if we want to do the Go video option, we're going to have to make it so that those videos would be uploaded later, because that's the convenience of that, is that people can videotape their meeting and then it can be uploaded later to be viewed online, which is a much better option than listening to an audio recording, because you can't really tell who is talking and which person is saying what. So just in looking at this, those were a couple things that we noticed that we wanted to make note of for when we look at this, when we go forward. So we decided to ask our clerk of the council to reach out to those commissions and to ask them by February 2nd, 2nd or 3rd, whatever that Friday is in February, for them to have a response. It gives the time for each of those commissions to meet between now and then, and to get back to us and let us know who would be willing to step up and be the first ones, with the plan that by the end of the year, all of these commissions would be on video, would be videoing their meetings. So knowing that it would need to be now or later, giving them the option to see who would want to make that first step. And so we're hoping to hear back from them. We might not have a compiled answer on exactly what that looks like for the next meeting, but the hope is that we would have like a draft resolution of what that might look like, and we can discuss what the next steps are there.
Any questions? Councilor Evans, do you have a plan going forward with correcting this resolution that was written back then? Do you have a plan to come up with a new resolution or a corrected resolution, or what would you like to do? And if you have an idea on how to fix this and make it more accurate, if you could send that to the clerk of the council and she can share that with us, and then we can discuss it at the next council meeting.
Yeah, so I think the thing to decide is, do we want to stay focused on commissions? Maybe that is the direction we focus on for now, and if this goes well, then maybe the next phase is to add in boards and committees, or depending on where we want to go. And then the other part would be to adjust the live stream wording so that it would allow us to video record and upload later. So those would be the 2 adjustments that we would recommend at this point.
Okay. So we'll put that on for the next agenda, for the next meeting, for a discussion item, and then we can correct the resolution. Good? Okay, thank you. Is there any other reports from committees? Not seeing any, we'll move on. Thank you. Item 11, consent agenda. First reading, there is none. Second reading, there is none. 11C, miscellaneous, there is none. Item 12, unfinished business, there is none. Item 13, Deputy Mayor King, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Discussion item, the Fair Rent Commission Ordinance and PA 22-30, an act concerning Fair Rent Commission, reference Exhibit A as well as Exhibit B.
Is there a second? Oh, It's a discussion item,
Just
sorry.
discussion.
There is no, okay, Mr. Maniscalco.
Yeah,
Would you
so,
like to?
in your packet, Exhibit A is I believe it's a draft of the Town of Windsor's Fair Rent Commission ordinance, or it's their actual adopted one. And then Exhibit B is the actual public act associated with it from the state of Connecticut. So basically what's happened is the state of Connecticut's passed Connecticut General Statute that basically says municipalities of a certain size moving forward from a certain date have to put together a fair rent commission. We brought this forward to you after it was passed, and we were asked to go look and see if we could work with our Capital Region Council of Governments to see if there was a way to do it on a regional basis rather than just do it locally. And they did take that item up. It was discussed at a number of meetings, and unfortunately it was determined by their attorneys that they legally cannot actually do it on a regional basis. So as a result, it kind of got kicked back to us. So here we are. I will say that I had the opportunity to meet with a number of our residents at the senior center with the mayor, and this was one of the #1 topics associated with that meeting. I think there's a number of our senior residents who, within the community, have seen an increase in their rent this last year, probably as a result of inflation, partially, but there is question about it overall. So, you know, a committee like this may have that opportunity to review that and at least shed some light on, you know, the reasons why there may be rents moving in certain directions. So unless there's something that's just completely way out of line with the Windsor ordinance, I would probably go and try to draft something similar to that for us that we could start with. And then basically the process for an ordinance is, you know, we'll get a draft in front of all of you. You can change it however you'd like. Once you guys make your changes, we'll send it off to the town attorney for his review, and we'll set a public hearing. We'll have the public hearing, and based upon that, you can decide to approve or not approve it. It would sit for 30 days, and then it'll become an ordinance within the town. So unless there's something that's just completely egregious with it, you know, feel free to read it over the next week. Let me know, and I'll try to move forward in getting something together for all of you to start working on at your next meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Maniscalco? Councilor Paterno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If no one minds, we have Commissioner Cavagnaro here from Planning and Zoning, and they have had some discussions on this as well. I wonder if he could join us and kind of fill us in on some of the background with this Fair Rent Commission?
Thank you, Councilor Paterna. For the record, Alan Cavagnaro, 83 Pine Up Drive. So I've testified a few times here before through public input on the Fair Rent Commission. I've had quite a bit of research and experience dealing with this. 12 months ago, I interned for the Housing Committee, but also an intern for State Representative Quinton Williams, who worked on the Housing or the Fair Rent Commission Bill 5205 now. Public Act 2230. Really, the aspect of it, originally it was supposed to be municipalities, that have a population of 10,000 and above. It got amended to 25,000. South Windsor still falls in that discretion of roughly now we have 27,000 in population. But really, the reason why, this is being pushed forward is it gives tenants and renters a platform. Now, you may say, well, there's housing court. They could really go there for an unfair rent increase. And most likely that is not a case unless if you're 62 years or older and you're within a dwelling unit. There's a bunch of regulations of why you can't go to housing court to solve an unfair rent increase. So having a fair rent commission is ideal. It helps tenants. And even in South Windsor, last time I checked, we have 1,230 rental units out of a population of 27,000. So we do have a good portion of the community that live in apartments that really benefits them. It gives them a platform. But like we said, it's required by law as of July 1st, 2023. It's why I've testified here multiple times in favor of this, trying to push it forward. Going forward with that, like I said, it gives renters really the platform to voice their concerns. And I think an interesting part about the Fair Rent Commission is that most cases don't even make it to a public hearing. The goal of a Fair Rent Commission is really to solve it behind the scenes, have a mediation. Like I said, behind the scenes and private between the landlord and the tenant and a couple commission members discussing it, either a way to phase in a rent increase or making a judgment of saying that is too high or maybe a lower rent increase, or altogether saying that is not an unfair rent increase or it is an unfair rent increase. And leading to that, there has only been a handful of times out of the thousands and thousands of decisions of a Fair Rent Commission that has led to litigation. Very little at all, no appeals whatsoever. So there's no treacherous path whatsoever. I think another myth that a Fair Rent Commission has seen before.
Excuse me, Mr. Caponero. Excuse me, folks. Could you please calm it down? Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm having trouble hearing. Your voice is carried. Thank you.
So 12 months ago during the legislative session, one of the big myths that a lot of legislators are seeing was, with a Fair Rent Commission, it will drive away new housing developments. That is simply not true. Cases of Simsbury, Glastonbury, and Farmington, they have a Fair Rent Commission and they've seen their population grow. So that is a false myth. It is not true. But I've testified in favor of this before. Also with a housing aspect, as I was made aware, we do have a housing commission. Of course, it is separate from the housing authority, two separate things. And like I just want to mention, this is not a housing authority. It is not rent control. It is a Fair Rent Commission. It is basically giving more power to local government to really work with tenants for fair rent. And going forward, having a housing aspect with it would be great. Rather than creating a new commission, you are creating a bigger commission that is really maintaining activity rather than a commission meeting maybe once every 2 to 3 months. It is an active commission with multiple responsibilities. Going forward, like I said, it keeps it active, but it can also help other committees like planning and zoning. It can help it with either grants or looking over the zoning regulations, which we are doing right now. But like I said, I really believe in the Fair Rent Commission. Hopefully we have language for it in the next coming months. A lot of towns have done it, and like I said, I do support the Fair Rent Commission. I have a little more information on my laptop, so if there are any other questions, I can pull that up quickly, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Cavanero. Councilor Paterno. Okay, you good? Thank you, sir. Questions, Deputy Mayor King?
Yes, thank you for that. Through you, Madam Mayor, just to be clear, it's not just those individuals that rent apartments, because we do have individuals that also rent houses, correct?
Yes, anyone that has a rental unit. It's not just apartments, it's houses, anyone that rents.
Thank you.
That was a good question. I didn't think of that. I only thought of apartments. Yeah, okay, every once in a while you got a good one. Councilor Kozakowski.
I think Councilor Leidecker.
Councilor Leidecker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just at a brief review of Windsor's, I guess some of the things that I'm missing, I understand, the idea is to have landlords and tenants and to give a platform for tenants. Where are the commission members of this going to get their information as to what is fair rent? I mean, right now we have supply and demand. COVID created a huge housing crisis, so apartments are higher than maybe they have been in the past. Landlords can be a little pickier with who they're renting to. So, one, what's preventing any tenant from constantly filing a barrage of actions against the landlord just because they don't like the amount of their rent? And two, what's empowering this commission to be able to conduct surveys or assessments of surrounding areas to find out what is quote-unquote fair rent? If you know.
If you know.
Yes, I'm actually pulling up a statute. I did have this in, I will say 12 months ago, I had to put a presentation together for this bill. And so through statute 7-148C, it goes into great lengths of what qualifies as, what considers, an unfair rent increase or an unconscionable rent increase. It goes into, I'm not going to read all of them, but it goes into 13 points of what qualifies as an unfair rent increase. Documentation would really be recovered really from either the landlord or the property owner for that matter, anyone from town staff that has information on the lot information, but also from the tenant as well. So for example, in a hypothetical scenario, if someone's paying rent for $1,500 a month, then landlord comes in, either fixes something but says that is a reason why for the rent to increase, I would assume the tenant has documentation of that, so that would be provided as well. But even after that is filed, more documentation would be tried to compile after the case is brought forward. So either, and again, I haven't really dealt with this that much. So for example, town staff would be reaching out to the tenant on certain issues, either looking for certain documents. Same thing for the landlord. But yeah, like I said, it is statute 7-148C. It mentions in 13 points of, again, what considers, an unfair rent increase.
And thank you very much. I'm glad there's some sort of guidance. Is there any information, because I think it's not only just the tenant, but it's also the landlord. Is there any information or guidance on how we can kind of but prevent frivolous complaints coming in just because somebody doesn't like their rent increase or they disagree with it?
Yeah, so I'll go off and first and say that most memberships of a fair rent commission usually have a couple tenants, a couple landlords, and then a couple other people that are appointed to it. So first off, there would be some, prior discretion, representing all points of views, all different backgrounds of a fair rent commission. So I think going forward with that, I think there'd be some landlords on a hypothetical commission that would be somewhat sympathetic towards that, but they would, and again, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but like I said, there are going to be, landlords present on the commission as well in some towns that have the ordinance, but.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Councilor Kozakowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Kavanaugh, for that description. It's a lot of good background information. What I also want to do is point the council to more background information. I was able to dig up a toolkit produced by the Partnership for Strong Communities. It's a 40-page document that outlines the why we have the fair rent commissions and kind of has a FAQ on a lot of common questions. And I'll send a link to Amanda if she wants to distribute to the rest of the commission. But within this document, it provides a model ordinance for communities, and comparing it to the one that we have from the town of Windsor, it's fair to say that they use that model as their base. So I think, I think it's always good to borrow good ideas from other towns, but I think we could start with the base that's provided to us and customize that to what fits good within South Windsor. Because what might work when discretion was made, what worked for Windsor might not be working for South Windsor. So I think we should look into that also.
So would you like that on the next agenda for the first meeting in February as a review, if all this can get out to us?
Yeah, I mean,
As a
I can
discussion
get that
item?
out. Let's hold off on timing for one moment. Another just interesting fact that before this legislation, there was 25 towns and cities with fair rent commissions, and as a result of the Public Act, 27 more municipalities were impacted, including South Windsor. Fun fact for the day. I know that as the town manager represented that he went to Capital Region Council of Government and to look into the option of regionalization, and turns out the answer is no. But I do notice in the CROG's legislative agenda, they do have making fair rent commission proposal to regionalize it. So that's something that I think we should keep an eye on, see where that goes. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, everybody thought it was a great idea. And I believe all the board members wanted it, and I believe when the attorney came in and said that they couldn't do it, there was a lot of pushback and asked them to go back and reconsider it and things of that nature. So a lot of our communities in the area believe having a regional fair rent commission would be a very good idea, so.
Yeah, thank you. And just the idea, not saying that regionalization is the answer, but a benefit to something like that is, number one, getting getting volunteers to serve on this type of commission. And then also, and that could solve the problem for many of these impacted communities and others that are not obligated to have a fair rent commission, but they might sign on to a regional effort. And then the other option is having, it draws from a larger pool of candidates that may be better qualified to make determinations like what would be fair, what's fair rent, what's appropriate based on market settings, all the economic stuff that, a general board member might not, have that information for. So just something to keep in the back of their mind, but I do recognize that, by July 1st, we're charged to have a fair rent commission, so we should still be moving forward and just keep an eye on the legislative agendas. The next thing I want to comment on is there is a significant amount of administrative work that would be associated with administering a commission like this. First, I think we're going to need some town staff to create applications and manage, procedures, administrative procedures for collecting applications and distributing, assessing them in some preliminary way and distributing to commissioners for their meetings. We have to look at what kind of, if there's an application fee and what would be appropriate for that, for that, use of staff time. Also, there's going to be some, lack of a better word, financial infrastructure that needs to be created because a commission like that is required to hold rent money in escrow in case there's some sort of decision to be made. So that needs to be built in. And anytime we're talking about administering a commission that has staff needs, publication needs, probably printing needs, and what have you, notice needs, there has to be a budget allocated to the administering that commission, just as the Planning and Zoning Commission has a budget, Inland Wetlands has a budget, Zoning Board of Appeals has a budget. The Fair Rent Commission is going to have a budget, so that's something that we have to consider as we go into budget season. I guess with that, have we, to the town manager, have we thought about what kind of staffing, what department might oversee something like this, which individual?
I have a few ideas. I've had some very preliminary conversations with our planning department, a little bit about that at this point, but beyond the preliminary conversations, not too much. So my plan was to try to get something in front of all of you, kind of see which direction there was a little bit of leaning towards, and then go back and have some additional conversations and see where we could go. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, so just as we move forward in this and back to the timing thing, I want to make sure that we have all these ducks in a row before we create something and not have anything, any support behind it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Kaskowski. In hearing that, first question, I'd like to say thank you for all your insight in that, and Councilor Leidecker for your questions. There is a lot that will be going into this commission, as you've just pointed out to us, and there's a lot of information. And when you share that with Amanda, the 40-page document, please share that with Mr. Maniscalco so it may be able to help him too. Mr. Maniscalco, I think the timing then would fall on you. And I'm asking, if you have a time frame for us, please bring it up whenever you'd like, whenever you're ready. Maybe even March if you need that long to gather all your ducks and figure out which direction they're heading and all that. So, and that would be great. Maybe the first meeting in March, we could have things, more discussion items. And then the other last question that I have, or the one question I have is, Mr. Cavanero, would you consider being on this commission?
Yes.
Thank you. I have never heard someone volunteer so quickly in my life. That's an awesome thing. I just had to ask, and you're so knowledgeable on it. I thought that would be a good thing. Yeah, awesome. Someone write that down in blood, please, right now. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, sir, for being here and presenting this to us this evening and all
Thank
the
you.
discussion on this.
you.
And any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, we'll be moving on. Thank you. Thank you for coming and helping us with this. And moving on to item 13B, Councilor Paterno, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is another discussion item on a letter that we received from the Energy Committee. As you may know, Councilor Kozakowski and I serve as chair and co-chair of the Energy Committee, and along with the guidance of Steve Wagner as the former chair, this information was put together for both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Council for us to think about ways to perhaps incentivize new development in town, whether it's industrial, commercial, or housing developments, of installing solar power in their facilities. We're not at the point where the state says you can require these things to happen, but we thought it would be a better idea if we approach it from the point of view of an incentive. If you look at page 6, that's probably the most important, 6 and 7, because it looks at the different options that we might have. And I think our committee was recommending somewhere between 1% and 3% as a tax abatement incentive for people to install solar energy in their development. So that's the point we're starting, and these are ranges that we're suggesting. We are in no means suggesting this should be hard and fast, this should be it. So we just want to open the discussion and see what you all think, and hopefully in the future, next couple of months, we can come to some conclusion and offer something, because the Planning and Zoning Commission can't do this. We have to offer the tax abatement. They can't. Okay? All right, so thank you. I'll stop there, but any questions or
Questions?
discussion? Councilor Kozakowski, if you want to add anything, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think moving in this sort of direction where we're adding, we're making it somehow better to encourage renewable energy usage, generating renewable energy, and making it somehow financially easier to do so, or making it, encouraging it to be a priority in our development projects. I think that's the right direction. As far as the abatement part of it, I was hoping we could have a little more discussion on that ahead of time, but it is what it is. And I have a question for Mr. Maniscalco. When the town council grants tax abatements for development projects, is it under the authority of some ordinance of the town or statute?
Yeah, it's under the authority of the Connecticut General Statute 12-65B.
Okay, so our authority to do so is straight from the statute.
Correct.
Okay, and as I understand that, the town can only provide tax abatements if authorized to do so by the state statutes.
Yeah, by a statute, correct.
Okay, so we can't create our own abatement if it's not permitted in the statutes.
You're correct.
Okay, so when we talk about, 1 to 3% range, that's something that we can consider and think about when we do evaluate tax abatements. But what I don't think we can do is allow, say, an existing building who wants to, say, put solar panels on their rooftops. We can't abate that, correct? Using our authority, within our authority.
12-65B wouldn't allow you to abate that. not 100% clear where, you know, Public Act 2129 would fall on some of that. So we would need to do some digging to see if that would work or not.
Okay. Okay, and then.
I mean, that would probably be a town attorney question more than even myself, so.
Okay, and so, I think, so I'm, still fairly new to the council, and I think I was only part of one tax abatement. Is there like a policy statement that this council uses for evaluating tax abatements procedures? Or is it just kind of, as they come up,
So-
they evaluate the merits of it at that
Yeah,
time?
so our process, at least internally on the staff side, is it's reviewed by our tax collection department to make sure that they've paid all their taxes. We have the assessing department review the values that have been submitted. I typically go in and take a look at it, and when the assessor does the review of the values, she'll also be able to help us determine what we estimate the tax revenue will be generated from that project. We then go and take a look and say, okay, well, it's gonna generate this much in taxes, it's gonna create this many jobs. We'll kind of come to some type of understanding of, okay, so this is really beneficial or not, and then try to come up with a percentage of what we believe that an abatement would be worth for them. Then it'll go to the Economic Development Commission for a review of that recommendation, and then it'll go to the, to all of you for your review and approval.
Okay, so in theory, if.
But there's
let's-
there's not an overarching policy, like, we only want to approve this type of a tax abatement or that type of a tax abatement. We've had that conversation with the Economic Development Commission a number of times, but yet nothing's been developed as of yet.
Okay, so in that, let's say we get to that point, there's a project and they, you're working through that process, and let's say hypothetical, they say, hey, what if we do solar panels, for example, on covering 80% of our roof, whatever's appropriate. We could come back and say, all right, instead of 70% tax abatement, we can give you, 73%, or.
So in the statutes and things, we don't go above 70%, but,
Yeah.
If you were at
But-
60, you could go 63, but
Okay.
just the same idea. And I would also think if they put their proposal together and it included that we were gonna do a whole solar roof on our building, that adds value to that building as it is. So that as a result, that's going to help bump those numbers up, which then help us typically give you a larger abatement as a result.
Okay, so I think, but we don't have anything like that that's written down that.
No, there's
for
nothing
that,
in
okay.
writing.
So I guess something that we have to
Yeah.
consider is, do we want to have something written down, some sort of policy statement, kind of, if you have some sort of menu items or something, I don't know what the right answer is. But just making it, outside of just saying, hey, please put solar panels on your roof, but have something where it's part of, our marketing package, so to speak.
Right,
Of,
right.
of,
I would
incentives.
almost think you'd want to create it in a way that it would allow you to help somebody who's building something new. But we also need to look at the redevelopment side of things, because we're getting to the point where we're really going to need to shift our gears, because our community's getting to a point where we're built out. And we got to shift gears at looking at what redevelopment really looks like. So, somebody's going to come in and they're not going to be building a brand new building, but maybe they're doing a facade over, maybe they're doing a ton of improvements on the interior, and then they're throwing solar panels on the roof. You want to be able to promote and benefit somebody like that as well.
Okay. Do you think you can look into, for us, seeing what type of authority we can have for possibly waiving permit fees, or some other fees collected for these types of installations?
So you do have the ability to waive permit fees. I would warn that's a slippery slope, in all honesty.
Understandable.
Without some really clear guidelines.
Yeah.
As to what you would need some very clear criteria as to who gets, who's eligible to have their fees waived or not. So, but that said, you could, I can tell you in the history of the town, it's not been done. So,
And is that authority in an ordinance or state statute?
I believe
or
that's within the municipality,
Within, okay.
yeah.
All right, I think that's good enough.
May I?
Thank you. Yes.
Counselor Kozakowski, if you could have any other suggestions, submit those to the town manager. And they can also be shared with us, with the council members, of ideas that you just mentioned this evening. But I think, Mr. Maniscalco, another one, if you get all the ducks in the row, come back and visit us in March maybe, on what you've uncovered or discovered, or a game plan to work on this. Good ideas. Good ideas. Councilor Paterno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This may help answer the question, too, in terms of what flexibility we have, but I remember there are some general guidelines. So, for instance, there was Mr. Maniscalco and I worked on a project in town where a business wanted to stay in town and wanted to upgrade their building slightly, but wanted a tax abatement. And the problem was, in working with the state, you've got to spend a certain amount of money to be eligible. You've got to improve the employment situation, so you can't just make the building look nicer but have the same number of employees and get a tax abatement. So I think those guidelines we do have to follow. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councilor Paterno, for bringing this forward. Item 14 is passage of ordinance. We have none. Item 15 is public input for any matter. The public input for any other matter shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and addresses. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the council that would like to speak to the council? Anyone from the public that would like to speak to the council on any matter that is not on the agenda? Good evening, Mrs. Delnicki. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. At the December 19th, 2022 meeting, I asked that my letter that was handed out to all councilors be part of the January 3rd, 2023 council online packet. This did not happen. At the January 3rd meeting, the clerk of the council asked that I provide another copy of my December 19th letter, which I thought was odd as I handed it directly to her on the 19th. On January 4th, I provided the letter to her again and to the entire town council via email. At the January 3rd meeting, I asked that this letter be part of the online agenda package for tonight's meeting, and once again, it was not. What is this town council trying to hide? So I'm asking again that the letter be part of the online council agenda for the next meeting scheduled for February 6th. Until recently, letters or emails that residents have submitted and asked to be part of the record have been included in the packet. Why has that changed? What is the mayor trying to hide? I'm again providing to the clerk a copy of the December 19th letter for her again to this council, and also I provided a copy of an email that I sent to the council on April 11th, 2022. I am requesting that these be part of the record. Also, the letter that I read into the record at the previous meeting on behalf of Stephanie Weintraub and also emailed to the clerk of the council should have been part of the online record as well. After many attempts, verbally and in writing, once again, I am requesting from the majority members of this council, especially Councilor Evans, the definition of high standards. I have been accused during a town council meeting by Councilor Evans of not having high standards. I have been before this council many, many times asking for the definition, and as of this date, I have not received one. I have never asked for this definition to be provided during public input during a council meeting. I have only asked for the definition to be provided to me in writing. As of tonight, I have not yet received it. This has been going on for approximately 10 months. If you were going to accuse me of not having high standards, I deserve in writing what the definition is. You cannot accuse me of something when you are guilty of it yourself. The following statement was made by Councilor Evans at the March 21st, 2022 Town Council meeting, and it bears repeating. I just wanted to reflect on something that was said earlier, and then it was just repeated again, about if we have someone who wants to volunteer, we should be putting them in that position. And I just think we can't. Just because a person says they want to volunteer, we have a duty to the town to make sure that these are the appropriate people to fill those positions. I don't think we should just be opening the door to anyone. We as counselors need to hold those who we appoint to boards and commissions to a high standard, just as we do ourselves, which you have not done yet. So I hope that we are considering those we bring forward, that we are considering who they are, how they represent themselves, and how they will represent the town on these boards and commissions. Due to the above statement by Councilor Evans, during a public meeting that I do not meet high standards, I am once again, I believe my 8th request, asking what the definitions of high standards are. If you would just only answer me in writing, you have my email, this can all stop. And I'd like to volunteer for the Fair Rent Commission too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak on any other matter to the town council this evening? Anyone else from the public? Ms. Marietta, librarian? Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. I'm actually speaking as a member of the South Windsor Historical Society Board, so not on behalf of the library, but myself. The Historical Society, as many people know, and hopefully more people will know, has a very nice, small museum of artifacts related to South Windsor at the Pleasant Valley Schoolhouse on Ellington Road. And among those items are 2 flags, a Blue Star flag from World War II and a POWMIA flag from the 70s. And they are about to embark on a project hoping to gather not only information about what those flags meant when they were displayed during those ever since those 2 conflicts, but also the experience of South Windsor residents relative to displaying the flags or earning the flags. And so they asked if I would make it known to the public that they would appreciate phone calls to the Historical Society phone number, which is 860-291-9958. They'll leave a message saying that they want to contribute to this project, gathering local experiences, and they'll get a call back from someone on the commission. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the public? Good evening, Mr. Dillon.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Tom Dillon, 34 Barbara Hill Road. 460 Miller Road, a chapter in town history, should be coming to a close, God willing, on the 1st of February, when the case involving the former junkyard at 460 Miller Road is heard in Superior Court. The current case began on 11/21/2017. It has 120 entries on the court docket. Who knew the little junkyard saga would continue for over 5 years? The council in 2017 had the guts and directed the town manager at the time to take action against a woman who was running a business out of her home illegally and compiling piles and piles of garbage in the yard, which was seen from the street. I believe anyone of sane mind was pleased that the town took action. The town ordinances are there to protect the abutting neighbors and the neighborhood in general, plus the town. I'd like to thank the council in 2017 for taking on that task. I became involved in 2019 when the case was heard under Judge Maukwauser. It's a mouthful. I was subpoenaed by the town attorney at the time. I testified to a hoarder list that I believed that was in place in the fire department. I guess I should have said Collier's Mansion. You can do some research, find out what that is. Lanata's attorney, Eddie Taintman, had the ability to cross-examine me after my testimony, yet he wasted his time trying to show I had some kind of a grievance against Lanata. Long story short, Lanata lost that case under Judge Maukwauser. In his decision, he questioned Lanata's credibility. While she denied under oath, quote, that any new material had been brought to the property since the 2016 fire, the testimony of town officials and eyewitness neighbors convinced the court she has at best been shading the truth and at worst deliberately lying under oath, unquote. 2 years later, Eddie Taintman came up with a brilliant idea to lie about me, saying I had perjured myself in the court about the hoarder list testimony to get the case heard in the Connecticut Supreme Court. Taintman says that Lanata has suffered severe damage to her reputation as a result of the hoarder label. Quote, they suffer from a mental defect or some other emotional problem, Taintman said, and they desperately need professional help because they are incapable of managing their own affairs. Well, he said it, not me. Perhaps she should have had a bit of personal responsibility about the whole situation, but it's pretty much unheard of today. There is no question that the house fell under the hoarder label. The firefighter definition of a hoarder is accumulating a large number, quote, accumulating a large number of possessions that have no apparent value. Within hoarder homes, walkways are limited. This can prove to be a labor-intensive task while managing even the smallest diameter attack line, unquote. Many firefighters have died in hoarder fires. While firefighters normally have no ability to see a hoarder home, if the outside is kept up in a normal manner, I can say 10 from my previous employment, there was ample evidence that Lanata herself provided. When she left her garage doors open, you could see from the street the large amount of possessions that had no apparent value in the garages, in the basement rooms, all the way down the addition that they had. Anyone that wants to make up their own mind can go to a Facebook page named 460 Miller Road. On that page are photos taken by the fire marshal office when they conducted their investigation. Go to that page and make up your own determination of the condition of that home. And Mr. Maniscalco, please pass on, ask the town attorney not to muck up the case, because it's gone so far, we'd hate to lose now.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak this evening on any matter not on the agenda? Going one more time, anyone from the public would like to speak to the council on any agenda that's not, on any item not on the agenda? Not seeing anyone, we'll be moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Is there any communications? None. Item 17, executive session, we have none. Item 18 is adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.